Join us as we animate the epic tale of John Wick, where vengeance is the only path to redemption. A car crashes into a wall. John Wick, bloodied and injured, struggles out of the truck. He presses on a wound in his stomach. He pulls out his phone and watches a video of his wife, Helen, on the beach while he crawls to the side. John slumps down and closes his eyes. A few days earlier, on a cloudy day, John wakes up. He remembers being with Helen. They were having dinner, then there's a memory of them kissing, and finally the moment she faints in his arms. John is then shown with her in a hospital bed. He kisses her forehead and looks at the doctor, who takes his clipboard and leaves the room. The next scene shows John holding a necklace as he takes out his car. His wife, Helen, had a disease that took her life. On the day of her funeral, everyone leaves, and John stands alone over her grave while a man watches from a distance. After the ceremony, John's old friend Marcus approaches him. Marcus mentions it's been a while and asks John how he is coping. They talk, and Marcus says he is just checking on an old friend. He then says, "Goodbye," and leaves. After the service, John is at home and starts to clean up. The doorbell rings, and he opens the door to a delivery woman who asks him to sign some papers and gives him a package. Inside, there's a small beagle. Helen has left a letter for John. She writes that she has accepted her death and wants John to love again, starting with the puppy. John reads the letter and starts crying. He takes the dog out and notices its collar decorated with flowers, realizing Helen named the dog Daisy. He brings the dog some sheets, but the dog doesn't want to get off the bed. John picks it up and moves it off the bed. The next day, the dog climbs on the bed and wakes John, then follows him around the house. John pours cornflakes for himself and the dog and tells it that they are going to buy proper food for her. He bonds with the puppy and they spend the day driving around in his vintage 1969 Ford Mustang Mach 1. He pulls over alongside 3 Russian mobsters, including ISF Tarasov, the son of crime boss Vigo Tarasov, for gas. ISF approaches John's automobile, compliments it, and then inquiries about the price. John then says it's not for sale. ISF then abuses John in Russian, saying that everything has a price, bitch. Assuming he won't understand, but John corrects him by speaking Russian and tells him that, not this bitch. ISF was petting Daisy at the moment, but hearing this he gets angry and is about to react when one of his friends pulls him back and tells John to have a good day. Later that day, John drives his car to an empty construction site and starts drifting around to release his frustration. He almost crashes into some trucks but manages to stop just in time. That night, Daisy needs to go outside while John is getting ready for bed, so he takes her downstairs. When they get there, 2 shadowy figures appear in front of John, and a third person hits him in the head with a bat. Daisy whimpers as John is beaten. One of the men attacks Daisy and breaks her neck. One of them tells the others to find the keys, and another says he has found them. After taking the keys, the man removes his mask, revealing himself to be ISF. He insults John and tells him to sleep well before knocking him out. Later, John wakes up and finds his lifeless dog. He lies next to her and strokes her head. He buries Daisy and starts cleaning up his house while memories of his wife and the attack from the previous night fill his mind. ISF drives John's Mustang to Aurelio's store. He tells Aurelio that he needs new papers and a new license plate for the car. Aurelio immediately recognizes the car and demands to know where ISF got it. ISF brags about stealing the car and killing its owner dog. Aurelio orders him to leave, but ISF claims they own him. Aurelio responds that he works with ISF's father, not for him, and punches ISF in the face. One of ISF's men pulls out a gun and points it at Aurelio, but another stops him from shooting. ISF insults Aurelio and says he'll take his business elsewhere. Later, John visits the shop and asks about the car. Aurelio tells him the car was there and that ISF is Vigo's son. That night, Vigo calls Aurelio to ask why he hit ISF. Aurelio explains that it's because ISF stole John Wick's car and killed his dog. Vigo simply responds with, "Oh." He seems worried and goes to his penthouse, where one of his men congratulates him. Vigo tells him that he wants to meet with his son. Meanwhile, John goes to his basement with a sledgehammer and starts breaking open the floor. He is shown to be searching for a stash of weapons and gold coins. To deal with the issue, Vigo meets with ISF at his house. He gives ISF a drink and compliments his jacket before punching him twice in the stomach, scolding him for who he had just angered. Vigo's henchman asks to leave, but Vigo tells him to stay. Vigo explains to ISF that John Wick used to be associated with him until John met Helen and decided to leave that life behind. John was known as Baba Yaga, the boogeyman, or rather, the man sent to kill the boogeyman. Vigo tells his son about a time when he saw John kill 3 men in a bar with a pencil, emphasizing how dangerous John is. When John wanted to retire and marry Helen, Vigo gave him an impossible task, which involved multiple high-level assassinations in a short time. To Vigo's surprise, John succeeded, and his efforts were crucial in establishing the Tarasov syndicate. ISF tells his father that he can handle the situation and will finish the job, but Vigo warns him that John will come for him and there's nothing he can do to stop it. After this warning, Vigo calls John to try to resolve the issue, but John hangs up on him. That night, Vigo sends a team of 12 hitmen to John's house to kill him. John easily takes out all of them, fighting the last few before stabbing the final one in the heart. A police officer arrives at the door and knocks. John greets him by name and asks if there has been a noise complaint, which the officer confirms. The officer asks if John is back in the game, referring to the body behind John. John says he's just handling things. The officer says, "Goodbye," and leaves. To clean up and get rid of the bodies, John calls an underworld cleanup team he has worked with before. They seem to know this won't be the last time they help him. Vigo then approaches John's friend Marcus and offers him a $2 million contract to kill John Wick. He also tells his assistant Avi to put out a call for others to take the job. Marcus gladly accepts the offer. John checks into the New York Continental Hotel, a place that caters exclusively to the criminal underworld and does not allow any assassinations on its premises. He plans to stay there during his business trip. At the hotel, he recognizes Perkins and meets Winston, the manager and owner of the Continental, who is also an old friend of John's. When John asks, Winston tells him that ISF is at a nightclub called the Red Circle. John goes to the club where ISF and his friends are partying. He meets an old acquaintance there and tells him to take the night off, and the man thanks him. ISF is enjoying a night of champagne and women in a luxurious Russian bathhouse when John kills one of his men and approaches from the club's lower level. When they see John, he starts shooting at them, and ISF runs away. John kills every hitman in his path but loses ISF, who escapes in a car. John returns to the Continental to get a gash in his side sewn up after being stabbed in the stomach with a bottle by one of Vigo's men. The doctor warns John that if he strains himself too much, his stitches will tear. John says the bourbon he bought earlier will handle the painkiller part of his recovery. Late at night, Marcus climbs to the roof of a building across the street and watches John, who is sleeping. He sees someone approaching through a mirror and fires a warning shot at John. Perkins starts shooting at John, but he manages to dodge her. She tells him that if she breaks the hotel's rules and kills John for Vigo, she will get $4 million. John fights with Perkins until he gets her in a headlock and offers her mercy in exchange for information. She tells John that Vigo keeps most of his assets in a church basement. John knocks Perkins out and leaves her with Harry, paying him with one of their organization's gold coins to watch her. Perkins is tied to a chair by Harry, who doesn't realize that she has dislocated her thumb and is slipping free. She escapes, covers Harry's face with a pillow, and shoots him. John visits Vigo's secret stash of cash and business documents in a chapel. After shooting the other guards in the church, John forces the priest to lead him to the vault. He sends the women in the vault away and sets the entire place on fire. Vigo learns about the fire just as John is about to ambush him with a hail of bullets. Despite killing most of Vigo's men, John is knocked unconscious when one SUV crashes into another, throwing him to the ground. Vigo captures him and asks why he's gone to such lengths for revenge over a car and a dog. John explains that the puppy was a gift from his late wife. He warns Vigo to either hand over ISF or die with him. Vigo leaves him with his men, who try to suffocate John with a garbage bag. However, Marcus, watching from a nearby building, shoots one of the hitmen in the head, allowing John to take out the others. John is the only one left alive and fires at Vigo's escape vehicle, forcing him to reveal that ISF is hiding at a Brooklyn safe house. Even though the safe house is guarded by armed men, John kills them all and storms the property. He blows up all the getaway vehicles with bombs and then catches up to ISF, shooting him in the stomach and then in the head. Perkins finds out that John and Marcus have been in contact and informs Vigo. In retaliation for ISF's death and Marcus's failure to kill John, Vigo sends his men to Marcus's house. They beat him until Vigo and Perkins arrive and fatally shoot him. As Vigo is about to leave, he calls John and tells him he has killed his friend. Vigo then heads to a helicopter to escape the city. The plan is for Perkins to ambush John when he comes to Marcus's house. While waiting for John to arrive at Marcus's house, Perkins is called to a meeting with Winston, the owner of the Continental Hotel. At the Bethesda Arcade in Central Park, Perkins meets Winston and 4 other men. Winston tells her that she has broken the Continental's rules and her membership is revoked. The 4 men then execute her. When John finds Marcus's body, he sets out to kill Vigo. He sees Vigo and his men heading to the helicopter and tries to ram his car into them. Vigo orders Avi to kill John, but John's car crashes into Avi instead. Vigo tries to push John's car off a cliff, but John survives. The two then fight hand-to-hand in the rain. Vigo tries to stab John, but John pulls the knife into himself to gain leverage and break Vigo's arm, then grabs the knife from his own stomach and stabs Vigo in the neck, leaving him to die. We return to the opening scene, where John is still bleeding. He is inspired to keep going after watching the video of Helen. He goes into a dog shelter to treat his knife wound. He then adopts a pit bull puppy and takes him home. If you liked this video, remember to subscribe for more, turn on notifications, and leave a like to support the channel.